Iowa State isn't exactly known as a football powerhouse, unfortunately. At least, not yet. It seems like things may be changing as the media and the nation are starting to open their eyes and realize that Iowa State has one of the top quarterbacks in the entire sport. We're talking about it today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day, making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform, be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone State. Today we are talking about Rocco Becht and the Maxwell Award preseason watch list. We'll also talk about another preseason watch list for a different award, obviously, and some new Iowa State players that are surfacing there. Going to be a great season for Iowa State. We'll talk more about that and dive into that. Who else is on those lists and such, that kind of conversation to start off today's episode. Then we are going to move into Deion Sanders in our second segment today. That's right. Prime himself is returning to coaching. So we're going to talk about that, what that means for Iowa State. A little bit maybe about his presser he had yesterday. Electric, I know. And then finally, third segment today, we're going to talk about a Twitter graphic that made its way in front of me. You can find me at Nick_Marv on Twitter, or I guess X. Yeah, we're going to have to disprove that immediately. And that'll be fun. Don't go anywhere. Stick around for that one for sure. But let's talk first about the Maxwell Award preseason watch list. Was released yesterday, and yours truly, Rocco Becht, is on the preseason watch list. There are quite a few people on this list. Obviously, we've got a lot of football left to play this season. I don't think we've played a game yet, and if we have, someone needs to alert me of these kinds of things. All right. I thought for sure we had at least a week, but if they're already playing, I'm quite sad that I missed that. Anyways, let's talk about the guys on the Big 12 watch list here, because across the entire conferences, the Power Four, very extensive list, so we don't need to get too far into it. Noah Fafita of Arizona, the quarterback. Sam Levitt, quarterback at Arizona State. Jordan Tyson, also from Arizona State, on there. Sawyer Robertson and Bryson Washington, quarterback, running back combo from Baylor. Jaden Nixon, the running back from UCF, on there. Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati, that quarterback, obviously. Rocco Becht himself of Iowa State, the quarterback. Pair of guys from Kansas State, running back, quarterback. Dylan Edwards, Avery Johnson. Josh Hoover of TCU, obviously slinging that pigskin. Baron Morton, the quarterback at Texas Tech. And then Devin Dampier, the quarterback at Utah, along with Jaheim White, the running back at West Virginia, round out the Maxwell Award preseason watch list for 2025-6, the Outstanding Offensive Player Award. This is super exciting that we got a guy on this list. I think really is what it comes down to. Obviously some acknowledgement there. Really, it's not the end of the world. Like, we talked so much about preseason stuff, and it's kind of the time of year we're in. Although I will say things are starting to kind of pick up, right? There's kind of starting to be some events here and there. I think football is officially on this week, if I'm not mistaken. Is the NFL Hall of Fame game on? Like, we might be getting really close to getting back into the swing of things here. And boy, to say I'm excited would just be almost like it would be such an understatement. It's like, is that even a statement? Like, that would be a crazy claim. I'm obviously extremely, extremely excited for football to be back, and for sports in general, right? Because as soon as football is over, or not, before football is even over, basketball, we're back into the swing of things there. Excuse me, getting a little bit off track here. As far as Rocco being in this group of guys that are on this preseason watch list here, this is a high level list. This is a very no kidding award for sure, but also a very no kidding list of dudes. We've talked a lot here. We've talked a lot as a media this offseason about the quarterbacks in the Big 12. We'll talk about this more, I'm sure, throughout the offseason, but this is, in my opinion, the deepest conference as far as quarterback play goes. On this list alone, You've got Arizona, Arizona State, Baylor, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Kansas State, TCU, Texas Tech, Utah. Are you kidding me? That list is extensive to say the least. And a couple of these guys are even a tier above. You know, I would say there's definitely tiers even within this. That's how good it is, right? Like if you're getting like 3 or 4 guys in, but they're all kind of at that same level, it's like, all right, they're all really good or they're all maybe borderline or whatever. We've got tiers within the top offensive player list, preseason watch list from the Big 12. That says a lot about this conference as a whole. But then when you look at just like some names in particular, Rocco Becht being put in that same category, literally, that's literally what this is. As Sam Levitt, Jordan Tyson, 2 dogs from Arizona State. Sawyer Robertson, excuse me. Avery Johnson, huge, 2 huge players and guys that could really make a huge difference this year. I think Josh Hoover from TCU, another guy, can't ignore him. Cannot ignore him. So for Rocco to be put in that conversation, we're starting to kind of see people realize just how much of an impact he's had on Iowa State. I believe I saw here in the Iowa State press release talking about he has, the best right here, helped Iowa State to 18 wins over the last 2 seasons, the best 2-year stretch in Iowa State history. The dude's a legend. I mean, I think arguably one of the best quarterbacks in Iowa State history. I think that's probably a hot take. I know that there's going to be some people that disagree with that, but I think he's definitely up there. And I think when we have that conversation of is he an NFL caliber player? Absolutely. I think he's absolutely in that conversation. Talk really quickly about the Jim Thorpe preseason watch list came out yesterday, to my knowledge as well. Arizona State Xavier Alford is on that list, and TCU's Bud Clark. But Iowa State actually had the lion's share, had 50% of the guys from the Big 12 on this watch list. Jeremiah Cooper and Jontez Williams both making that list. That's makes me ecstatic. I mean, I am so excited to see what the secondary does this year. I think the secondary can be very, very good. We'll see if they're better than last year. And I know if I get too high on them, I'm gonna get the comments saying that, hey, you're not really the highest on the secondary this year. I thought that was the one group that's like the biggest question mark. They are. They definitely are. I think they have a lot of shoes to fill or holes to fill in that roster. Big shoes to fill, if you will, with how successful they were last year. But I mean, we're seeing good signs from media acknowledgement as well as just roster kind of current position that we're in with the defensive line and the linebackers. This defense as a whole is going to be so much better. I don't think it's out of the cards at all for either one of these 2 guys to just come away with 30 picks on the year. Like something absolutely ridiculous would not shock me. It just wouldn't, because just because it's a question mark doesn't mean that it's, you know what I mean? How many test answers have I guessed on in my life? Almost every single one of them. And I somehow graduated high school for sure. Definitely high school. So it means I got some of them right. Like the question mark doesn't mean it's wrong. I didn't know every single answer. I don't know how the secondary is going to do. I do have a pretty good feeling they're going to be pretty good this year. So Iowa State with Rocco Becht in the outstanding offensive player, which is arguably even better than the Heisman for sure. And then with 2 players in Jeremiah Cooper and Jontez Williams in the Jim Thorpe preseason watch list. It's going to be a very good year for Iowa State. This is very good news. Now, granted, these are just preseason watch lists. So it's like, keep that in mind. That just because these guys are on this list doesn't mean that Iowa State's going to win the Super Bowl this year. Like, got to come out on the field and prove it. Absolutely. But we're finally getting some attention, which is very good for rankings. We're getting some attention, very good for recruiting. This is all around good news. This is absolutely electric from really Iowa State football. We're starting to see it materialize, the up and to the right nature that the Cardinal and Gold pigskin sport is, which is super exciting. I personally think. Let me know what you think down below in the comments or at Nick_Marv on Twitter, because it's time to pivot to the man himself. Prime is returning to Colorado, and we're going to talk about that coming up right here after this. It is time to Fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Me personally, this would be the top of the wildest shots I have ever made. Yes, I know the golf shots when I'm out there on the course, you should see me from about 300 yards, putting them to 8 feet. This one is by far, this energy shot tops them all. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev card. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LockedOnGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you are meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Deion Sanders had the entire world shocked yesterday. I think this was maybe one of those moments in media where I think everyone paused what they were doing to tune in to the press conference in what I assume was Boulder. I guess I didn't get an official statement on where they were. This was big news. There was a lot of speculation that Prime was going to be done with coaching. There's been a lot of, conversation around his health over the last few, I would say maybe years at this point, I suppose, but definitely months. And no one was really certain. I think personally, I put out a tweet on I guess, or a post on X at Nick_Marv. And I was like, yo, where can I watch this? Cause I don't want to miss if this is the last press conference he does as the Colorado head coach. Like, I want to see this. And I did end up finding it. There was a lot of vibes of like, this might be it. There was, posts of the medical staff name tags and like, hey, this doesn't look good. Luckily, Prime gets up there and says, look, I'm cured from cancer and I am going to be back. And then nobody clapped. He was like, it's all right to clap, guys. And then the place went crazy. Super electric. Every time he gets on a mic, like, man, I do like watching him. Listening to him speak, but watching him speak too. He's a character. I love Prime, and he does a really good job coaching over there in Colorado for sure. I think a lot of people wondered what the future would look like for him without his sons on the team. Travis Hunter being the kind of specimen that he was, like without those guys on the team, what's the future look like for Colorado? And it doesn't really matter. It did not matter. It seems like Colorado will be keeping their head coach. Now, they will allegedly, per Prime, have to put an extra porta potty on the sidelines for him to use. But I don't think anyone's really going to be too worried about that. At the end of the day, Prime should be able to get the job done just as good as he has in years past. And so I kind of wanted to pull up Colorado's schedule here just because it's like one of those that it's really easy to think, all right, well, Colorado, like they lost a bunch of good players. I don't think this is going to be a problem for Iowa State. Remember, Iowa State does play Colorado, and I think that there's a chance Colorado's in it at the end of the year. They were definitely they were knocking on the door, to put it one way, last year. They almost made that Big 12 championship game. And so they could be right back in it this year. Let's take a look at their schedule and break it down. I will say they start this season. I talked about Iowa State's bye schedule when this dropped, and pretty much every opportunity I have had, I love Iowa State's bye schedule. 4 games in a row bye, 3 games bye, 3 games bye, last 2 games. Colorado starts the year on a 7-game bender. Georgia Tech, Delaware, Houston, Wyoming, BYU, TCU, Iowa State, bye. That's a lot of games in a row. That is a lot of games in a row to start the year. Then they play 3 bye 2. That's the end of their season there. Now, I understand that not everyone's going to have the same bye structure as teams that go overseas for week 0. I get that, but 7 in a row to start the year, just not very evenly split. Even look at UCF, who goes 2-5-5. At least you're not playing 7 games in a row. So factor that in here when I'm going through this. But to start the year, Colorado will play Georgia Tech and then Delaware. Both of those games being at home. Okay, that is for Colorado a very important piece of this puzzle. Then they go to Houston, and then they have Wyoming at home. Okay, those are their first four there. I imagine they win at least three of those. Maybe Georgia Tech causes some issues. Maybe Houston causes some issues. Maybe Wyoming. I believe Delaware is the new lowest rated team in college football 26. If I'm not correct on that, you can let me know in the comments or at Nick_Marv on Twitter. Also, what that doesn't really equate to the actual team. I get that, but at least worth mentioning. I think it's them. I think it's. Unfortunately, I don't have the game yet, but someday. I think through those first four, they got 3 wins minimum. Then they go. This is tough for them. At the tail end of that 7-game stretch, they have BYU at home, TCU on the road, and then Iowa State at home. I think through here they go 1-2 on a good day. I think BYU, obviously no Jake Retzloff, but probably still going to be a very solid team in the Big 12. TCU, one of my sleeper teams in the Big 12, and Iowa State, the eventual Big 12 champions. Like, yeah, of course it's going to be a problem. So you could go from 3-1 or 4-0 to as bad as 4-3 through those first 7. That's a very realistic situation Colorado could find themselves in. I think best case scenario is they're maybe 6-1 through those. Even if they do defeat Iowa State, which I don't think they will, I just don't see a way they beat BYU, TCU, and Iowa State all 3 in a row, personally. So let's say through this area, at worst, they're 4-3 up to 6-1. So about a 2-game swing there is what I'm going to give them. Then they've got Utah, Arizona, West Virginia. I think all 3 of those they can get after the bye week. They'll have 2 road games in there in Utah and West Virginia. They come home in the middle for Arizona. Arizona, one of the lowest picked rated teams in the Big 12. You can see here in the Locked On preseason poll, they were voted last 16th out of 16 here. If you're listening, you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening, you can see it right there. I believe this is the college football rankings done by our friends over Spencer McLaughlin. UCF came in at 16 here, Arizona at 14. Either way, still very much near the bottom. So I think they can get that one for sure. West Virginia, wild card, in my opinion. Not exactly sure what's going to happen with that roster. Probably not going to be at the top, per se, of the Big 12. Nonetheless, in Utah, what are we really going to get out of Utah? We will see. So at the floor of 4-3 through those 3 games, if you continue with the floor trend, let's say they probably only lose one of those, right? So 4-3 to 6-4, I think, is their floor. I think they win all 3 of those at their ceiling of 6-1. If they're 6-1 going into that, there's no reason they can't walk out of that at 9-1. Then their last 2 are absolute. What's the word I'm looking for? They're tests. That's not the word I'm looking for, but they are absolutely tests. They've got Arizona State at home, and then they go on the road to Kansas State. I think this is a ceiling of 1-1, floor of 0-2. Kevin Borba of Locked On Buffs, maybe in my comment section or on Twitter, barking at me right now, but I don't think they can win both those games. And so if they're 9-1, that puts them at 10-2 on the year at the ceiling, in my opinion. And their floor, what did I have them at? 4-3. If they lose 4-3, so 5 and they're barely a bowl team, 7 or 8 wins. I think that with Prime back, I think they're probably somewhere right in the middle there, probably right around 8 or 9 wins. The game against Iowa State is going to be the biggest determining factor there. I think if Colorado is a threat to Iowa State, as far as Big 12 standings goes, I think Iowa State has more to lose in that game than Colorado does. I think that Colorado can manage to lose that game, and it's not the end of the world. Like, is there a ceiling really at the college football playoff level? And what's the difference between 6 and 8 wins if you're just a bowl team? Like, realistically, obviously there's going to be implications, but at the end of the day, versus Iowa State, the difference between maybe 9 or 10 wins, pretty big deal. So I think that game means a lot more to Iowa State, but that doesn't mean that Colorado won't be out of it. I think Colorado could be a very good team, especially with that schedule. Definitely some opportunities for them to turn up. Now they do have some very difficult components. Two of arguably their toughest games at the end of the year, a 7-game stretch to start things with the hardest of those 7 right at the end of it. Not a great spot for Colorado to be in, but if anyone can lead that team to a very successful season, I think it'd be Prime. I think it would. So glad to have him sticking around football. Best wishes as far as health goes. Never fun to have those conversations. So very excited that he is going to be coaching Colorado, even if there is a porta potty on the sideline. I think it'll be just fine. Now, let's talk a little bit about why I don't think Iowa State is going to be the biggest regressor in college football. Yeah, you heard that right. We're talking about it here right after this at Locked On Cyclones. All right, we got to have this is wild. I can't even believe we're about to talk about this. This graphic made its way across my feed, or I guess in front of my attention today from Twitter. This is just it looks like pretty much random account on Twitter. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that is, in fact, a Cyclone State. Let's keep in mind this is effectively a random account, and it appears to be a Hawkeye account, so keep that in mind. But basically, it's relatively well put together graphic. I'll give them that, of the most likely to regress teams in college football in 2025. I can't tell you for sure if this is in order or if this is just 8 teams that are probably going to regress. Nonetheless, Iowa State at the top of this list. Iowa State continues to live rent-free in Iowa's head. I don't really know what else to tell you. That's just the fact of the matter at this point. Tennessee also on this list, Indiana, Ole Miss, Oregon, BYU, Colorado, SMU. I can see the argument for a lot of these teams. I think Indiana is probably the biggest one that a lot of people would have on their list. We'll have to see for sure what happens with them. They blast off season last year, but how much of that's actually going to translate, how much of it was actual, the way the college football playoff went, how much of that was real, I guess is a good way to ask that. And then Colorado, we just talked about the plethora of talent that ended up leaving Colorado. BYU, no Retzloff. I don't love Iowa State being on this list. It just doesn't make sense to me. When you take it in the context of it's made by an Iowa fan, like duh. Of course they're gonna put us on this list. But I think if you were to see this from like CBS or from On3 or anything like that, I would be genuinely shocked. So the way I'm looking at this is literally just an Iowa fan being upset that Iowa State is significantly better than Iowa is now and probably ever will be. There's a very real chance that Iowa State's in the college football playoff this season. And unless you're Tony Petitti, I don't think Iowa has even a sliver of a chance. Now, that's just me, and we'll see how things play out. I guess because, it's the Big Ten, right? So it's not the Big 12 by any means. But I think if I had to pick between the two, I would pick Iowa State all day, every day. I just don't see the regression here. Literally the only argument, and I mean this, is that we don't have Higgins or Knoll. I guess you could maybe say like some of the defensive guys, Bo or DP or whatever. But I think the biggest one that everyone's going to point to is Higgins and Knoll. Now, why do I think that's completely worthless? I do not think that's an argument worth having. Because of all of the guys that are coming back from injury, not guys coming into the portal, which they're going to play a major role too. But the injury side of things is where I think everyone's forgetting. Everyone is just genuinely forgetting that Iowa State got significantly better just by bringing guys back. It's that simple. It's such an easy concept that people forget. Like, it's the same team, but they're better. Ooh, how is that possible? Because half their team was completely on the bench last season. Half of them didn't have legs, effectively. Like, they weren't playing. But then they went and got rehab, grew their legs back, and now they're playing. Like, we have top-tier talent coming back, and because so many guys were hurt last season, those second, third stringers got a lot of reps in. Now they are added depth pieces. It's that simple. This is a very real component to Iowa State football that I don't think a lot of people are thinking about. Everyone wants to talk about Rocco and his progression. How he got better year to year. He definitely did, or definitely we'll see it. We'll see it in the fall. Absolutely. Matt Campbell, the coach that he is, absolutely. The running back position, how they got better year to year. Absolutely. No one is talking about the returning tight ends from injury, the returning linebackers from injury, the transfers at the wide receiver position, the transfers at the defensive line position. This is arguably one of the best teams that Iowa State has sent out onto the field in a while. We'll see how it translates. We'll see how effective this team is at scoring touchdowns and stopping the other team, and really at the end of the day, winning games. We don't know yet. It's only July 29th, but we're not that far away. And based on what we're hearing from fall camp, which we'll talk about more in the coming days, this team is locked and loaded and ready to just dominate. So to say we're most likely to regress, it's not based in anything other than, like, if I were to say Iowa's going to go winless. Like, do I think that? Yes. Do I really believe that they can't win a game? Probably not. I think they can probably manage to win a game 5-2. That's Iowa football for you. Like, that's just what it is. They'll probably get a win, at least one. But the Iowa State fan in me is like, well, I don't know if they're going to win any single games. They might not. There's a pretty real chance of that, and I hope that happens. Like that's what the Iowa State fan in me says. But when you think about it logically, probably not going to be the case. When an Iowa fan writes this, okay, I can see why he said that. Game, respect, game. But do we actually logically think that? Logically? Probably not. No, I would say no. And the only argument outside of Higgins and Knoll would be that we saw such success last season that really the only way to go is down. And I guess really only one team is in a position, and I don't think any teams last season are in this position, where the only place you can go from down from where you were last season is down as the national champion. And I think that Ohio State probably could beat Michigan. So, it's one of those where even the national champion can still get better. Iowa State had a historic season, right? 11 wins, Pop-Tart Bowl champions, conference champion runner-ups or whatever, didn't win the conference championship, but in that game, electric season for Iowa State. One of the greatest of all time, for sure. Definitely up there. It's going to be hard to beat that, but it's not impossible. That's the only argument, is that they did so well last year. There's just no way they can go up from there. Well, they can. So is there more on the underside? There's, in a world of probabilities, is it more likely that they underperform? I suppose technically by area on the graph, yes, there is technically more scenarios in which they underperform. But that's only looking at what is achievable. That's not relating it to the roster. I think when you factor in the roster and the development of the players and the coaching and how many coaches stayed and like all of this stuff, there is not a world in my brain on July 29th, 2025, where Iowa State doesn't exceed, I'm going to say, 8 wins. I just don't see that happening. And I think it's a very, very real possibility, honestly likely, that they're in the Big 12 championship game again this season. Obviously, provided we don't lose anybody. Maybe someone forgets to get on the bus or something. That'd be kind of rough. But if everyone's playing, I think they're, dare I say, Big 12 favorites. I know they're not by the sports books, but me personally, it's just how I feel. Now, am I out of line? You gotta let me know in the comments down below or at Twitter at Nick_Marv. Thank you all for sticking around to this point. If you have, be sure to hit subscribe. It's completely free and helps us prove that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. That being said, stay safe out there. And until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.